Okay, everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell, and we are on our news from the Nefarium for February the 5th, 2011. As you can see, I'm smoking my other habit, my other vice today, and I have a bit of an update and a few comments I want to make about what's going on in Egypt and just to let everybody know, I've been kind of under the weather this week, and I won't mention with what. it would be it would be one of those too much information sort of things. So I won't mention that. But the first announcement I have to make is we are still working on the members only area, the subscribers area. I have been snowed under with a lot of projects. I'm doing about 7 major projects right now, and one of them is, of course, a book, and I'm trying to concentrate on that and get that done so that I can get it to the publisher. The publisher on this book will be Adventures Unlimited. I'm not going to discuss what it is or what I'm writing about, but I will say that it's in the ancient series of books that kind of are in the sequel arch to the Cosmic War. So we'll just leave it at that. And once, my habit is people ask me all the time what I'm writing about, and my habit is not to talk about things that I'm writing about until a manuscript is actually at the printer, not at the publisher, but at the printer. When the publisher tells me the printer has it and it's being printed up, then I feel safe to talk about what things are. And at that juncture, I'm hoping to have this book done sometime this month, possibly next month, and get off to Adventures Unlimited. They're usually pretty quick in terms of their turnaround because Adventures Unlimited does not, I have a lot of criticism about the editing in my books. Well, the problem is Adventures Unlimited is a small publisher. They do not hire editors. I have to literally do everything myself, and then the owner gives a quick read through, and you can never proof your own texts, and doing things in a hurry, this often happens. I've had a number of people volunteer their services, but uh, I just do not let anyone see what I'm doing simply for safety's sake. As you know, I've recently had to move, so that's kind of why I do it the way I do. Eventually, I'm hoping that that will change. But anyway, that's what's going to happen. The book will be done hopefully by the end of March at the latest, and that means probably a 2 to 3 month turnaround time. So we're looking perhaps at a summer publication date for that particular book. I have another number projects I'm working on for the members only area. Daniel has been delayed in getting some of that work done. He's volunteering his time, so he's tending to his business and doing that. So we are still working on it, folks, and I do intend on getting the members only area up and running, hopefully. My target date is around the end of March. I think that's probably what Daniel's target date is, so that's where we're at with that. Let's see, what else did I say? Egypt. All right. Uh, some people have been asking me what I think about what's going on in Egypt, and to be honest, I'm probably in the same boat as everybody else. I really don't know. I get the feeling in my gut that there may be some hidden hands, plural here, involved in what's going on, over and above the actual public demonstrations, which I think are legitimate, because what you're looking at with the Mubarak regime is the holdover of the revolution that toppled King Farouk back in 1954, I think it was. That, of course, brought in Gamal Abdel Nasser into Egypt. And if you recall in the Nazi International, I detail how some of the post war Nazis were involved in training Egyptian intelligence, in training the Egyptian army, and basically helping Egypt modernize under the Nasser regime until, of course, he kicked out that group of Germans that had been working partially under the auspices of the CIA and then brought in the Soviets. So we're looking with Mubarak as kind of the third successor in that long chain from Gamal Abdel Nasser, then Anwar Sadat, and then Hosni Mubarak. So you're dealing basically with a kind of a military dictatorship in Egypt that's been in place since 1954. And the Egyptian people are a broadly literate people. And of course, it's a cultured country. It has a very long history and association with ancient mysteries and so on. So I think you're looking at kind of the Egyptian version of Tiananmen Square. You're looking at the natural reaction of people to want and desire freedom, and that I think is a legitimate way of analyzing this. But I do think there are hidden hands here. And the first hidden hand, obviously, is going to be the United States and its various intelligence agencies, because if you're dealing with that kind of a situation, then it's going to be in the American interest to make sure that what ends up in Egypt is not a radical Islamicized government such as we saw take power in Iran with the toppling of the Shah and the bringing in of the Ayatollahs back in the late 1970s. So that's one hidden hand that I think is definitely involved here. You're going to have a heavy involvement of American intelligence, French intelligence, British intelligence, given their own associations, colonial associations with Egypt. So you're going to see that. I would also suspect you're going to see a heavy involvement of Russian intelligence in the background there, trying to steer events away from a radical government taking power and control in Egypt. And certainly, you're going to see the Israeli Mossad involved in some of that activity. The other hidden hand that I think we have to look for, or at least admit the possibility, is driving or capitalizing, I should say, on this unrest is the actual radical element within Islam. And of course, if we say that, then we're saying that there is some connection, perhaps, to this post-war Nazi international, given that that connection is historical. It dates back to the period of World War II itself. And that, I think, is probably the other hidden hand, not necessarily driving this, but at least trying to capitalize on it. So you've got two forces hidden behind the scenes there, I think, that are also jockeying and vying for power to see that either a radical government emerges in Cairo or at least a more moderate one acceptable to the West. There was something that got me interested in this process going on in Egypt, and that was a story that was reported that a museum of antiquities, I believe it was in Memphis, I'm not certain of that, I don't remember, but it came out last week, that there was a museum that had been looted. Now, needless to say, that that raised my antenna because it sounded very much, in a certain sense, like what happened in Iraq at the Baghdad Museum when that was looted. Time will tell, because in the case of the Baghdad Museum, if you read Colonel Bogdanovich's book about the Baghdad Museum looting, it is very clear, everyone agrees that has studied the incident, that this was an incident that definitely involved somebody with knowledge on the inside of what was in the museum and what to take. Now, I have never bought the story that we recovered successfully everything from that looting. I think we were successful in recovering many of the major stolen artworks, but I remain unconvinced that there may not have been some cuneiform tablets that were also stolen that were never returned. And again, I'm not basing that on any evidence that has been shared. It's just kind of a gut suspicion and putting two and two together from what was going on in Hussein's Iraq prior to the invasion with those archaeological teams and then what took place afterward. With the Egyptian museum looting, I haven't seen any stories yet that are suggesting, and they may be out there, it's just I haven't seen them, but I haven't seen any stories yet that are suggesting that this looting was an inside job. It may just be an ordinary case of looting, but I do think it's a story worth looking at very closely because one of the things I find very curious about the state of antiquities in Egypt in the last few years, since 9/11 really, is that Zahi Hawass, who is the Minister of Antiquities for all essential purposes, had a wall, as everyone knows, constructed around the Giza complex so that it is now impossible to get into the compound at Giza without his express permission. I suspect in part that he did this as a security measure to protect that plateau from vandals and radical elements that may have gone in there and destroyed things. But I also suspect very strongly that the powers that be behind Hawass, and they're largely the Anglo-American elite, this is very important to understand, that the powers that be behind him wanted that compound walled off for another reason. In other words, I suspect they're looking for something or at something that has not yet been disclosed and may never be disclosed inside of Giza. That puts this looting in a rather different perspective because under ordinary circumstances, of course, it would never have occurred or happened. And I have to hold open the possibility that the looting was tailored to the opportunity that the riots were causing, that there may have been, and I emphasize may have been, some sort of hidden hand in that looting. So we're going to hold open the possibility and follow the story. Anyway, that will do it, I think, for this little fireside update from the Nefarium, views or news from the Nefarium, part 3. And I'm doing this Thursday night because I'm suspecting I might be doing more of these fireside chats. Like I say, I haven't been feeling too well during the week, and I've had to cancel some radio interviews, but I can get away with this because the time is short enough on these YouTube videos that I can do it and then take care of what I need to take care of. But anyway, I hope everybody has a good weekend, and I do thank all of you for visiting the site, offering your comments, and for keeping me in your prayers and keeping the donations going. That really helps because with all this research that I'm doing right now, research is very expensive because a lot of what I do cannot really be done on the internet, and interlibrary loan is if you've dealt with it in public libraries lately, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's kind of frustrating at times. So anyway, I want to wish everybody a very good weekend, and I will probably be back and see you all later.